Hey guys, hope you guys had a great day today. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 are what we're going to read today. These are pretty short chapters again. So let's just review last time we read. You read the first chapter, which kind of explained that there was a cabin at the beginning of some woods. And in those woods, there was a tree. And near that tree was a spring that we found out, based on what we read in the back of the book. It contains water that, when you drink it, gives you immortality or everlasting life. And so we're just going to jump right into chapter 2 and 3 today, since we didn't read any yesterday. And so at dawn, that day in the first week of August, May Tuck woke up and lay for a while, beaming at the cobwebs on the ceiling. At last she said aloud, "The boys will be home tomorrow." May's husband, on his back beside her, did not stir. He was still asleep, and the melancholy creases that folded his daytime face were smooth and slack. He snored gently, and for a moment the corners of his mouth turned upward in a smile. Tuck almost never smiled, except in sleep. May sat up in bed and looked at him tolerantly. "The boys will be home tomorrow," she said again, and a little more loudly. Tuck twitched, and the smile vanished. He opened his eyes. "Why'd you have to wake me up? I was having that dream again. The good one, where we're all in heaven and never heard of Tree Gap." May sat there frowning, a great potato of a woman with a round, sensible face and calm brown eyes. "It's no use having that dream," she said. "Nothing's going to change." "You tell me that every day," said Tuck, turning away from her onto his side. "Anyways, I can't help what I dream." "Maybe not," said May, "but all the same, you should have gotten used to things by now." Tuck groaned. "I'm going back to sleep," he said. "Not me," said May. "I'm going to take the horse and go down to the wood to meet them." "Meet who?" "The boys, Tuck, our sons. I'm going to ride down to meet them." "Better not do that," said Tuck. "I know," said May, "but I just can't wait to see them. Anyways, it's been 10 years since I went to Tree Gap. No one will remember me. I'll ride in at sunset just to the wood. I won't go into the village. But even if someone did see me, they won't remember. They never did before. Now did they?" "Suit yourself then," said Tuck into his pillow. "I'm going back to sleep." May Tuck climbed out of bed and began to dress. 3 petticoats, a rusty brown skirt with one enormous pocket, an old cotton jacket, and a knitted shawl, which she pinned across her bosom with a tarnished metal brooch. The sounds of her dressing were so similar to Tuck that he could say, without opening his eyes, "You don't need that shawl in the middle of the summer." May ignored his observation. Instead, she said, "Will you be all right? We won't be back till late tomorrow." Tuck rolled over and made a rueful face at her. "What in the world could possibly happen to me?" "That's so," said May. "I keep forgetting." "I don't," said Tuck. "Have a nice time." And in a moment he was asleep again. May sat on the edge of the bed and pulled on a pair of short leather boots. Too thin and soft with age, it was a wonder they held together. Then she stood and took from the wash-side bedside, beside the bed, a little square-shaped object, a music box, painted with roses and lilies of the valley. It was the one pretty thing she owned, and she never went anywhere without it. Her fingers strayed to the winding key on its bottom, but glancing at the sleeping Tuck, she shook her head, gave the little box a pat, and dropped it into her pocket. Then last of all, she put down over her ears a blue straw hat with a drooping, exhausted brim. Before she put on her hat, she brushed her gray-brown hair and wound it into a bun at the back of her neck. She did this quickly and skillfully, without a single glance in the mirror. May Tuck didn't need a mirror, though she had one propped up on the washstand. She knew very well what she would see in it. Her reflection had long since ceased to interest her. For May Tuck and her husband, and Miles and Jessie too, had all looked exactly the same for 87 years. So we know from chapter 2, right? That they have been immortal, or obviously drank from the spring 87 years ago, and have not aged a day since. But I want you to think for yourself, and maybe on a piece of loose leaf paper, answer this question. As I was reading, I was thinking the fact that her boots were so worn and torn. The fact that it said Tuck didn't seem interested to go and ride and get her kids in town. He mentioned something about the townspeople are going to recognize you. May doesn't seem to be worried about it, whereas Tuck is. And Tuck seems a little bit disgusted at this point. Like, he doesn't really have much to care about. He's kind of okay with settling in. But it says at the beginning of the chapter, give me just a second to find it. Oh, about Tuck's dream, I'm sorry. That when he had his dream, he dreamed that we're all in heaven, and he had never heard of Tree Gap. Makes you believe that he's not really happy about his current situation. He's dreaming about going to heaven. Why would he be dreaming about going to heaven? Which of these two characters do you think is more settled in their situation? Like, is okay with their situation being the way that it is? And which one is not so crazy about it being this way? Let's go on to chapter 3. At noon of that same day in the first week of August, Winnie Foster sat on the bristly grass just inside the fence and said to the large toad, who was squatting a few yards across the road, "I will, though, you'll see. Maybe even first thing tomorrow, while everyone's still asleep." It was hard to know whether the toad was listening or not. Certainly Winnie had given it good reason to ignore her. She had come out of the fence, very cross, very near the boiling point on a day that was itself near to boiling, and had noticed the toad at once. It was the only living thing in sight except for a stationary cloud of hysterical gnats suspended in the heat above the road. Don't we all know about gnats? Winnie had found some pebbles at the base of the fence, and for the lack of any other way to show how she felt, she flung one at a toad. It missed altogether, and she'd fully intended it should, but she made a game of it anyway, tossing pebbles at such an angle that they passed through the gnat cloud on their way to the toad. The gnats were too frantic to notice their intrusions. However, and since every pebble missed its mark, the toad continued to swat and grimace without so much as a twitch. Possibly it felt resentful, or perhaps it was only asleep. In either case, it gave her not a glance. When at last she ran out of pebbles and sat down to tell it her troubles. "Look here, Toad," she said, thrusting her arms through the bars of the fence and plucking at the weeds on the other side. "I don't think I can stand it much longer." At this moment, a window at the front of the cottage was flung open, and a thin voice, her grandmother's, piped, "Winifred, don't sit on that dirty grass. You'll stain your boots and stockings." And another firmer voice, her mother's, added, "Come in now, Winnie, right away. You'll get heat stroke out there on a day like this. And your lunch is ready." "See?" said Winnie to the toad. "That's just what I mean. It's like that every minute. If I had a sister or a brother, there'd be someone else for them to watch. But as it is, there's only me. I'm tired of being looked at all the time. I want to be by myself for a change." She leaned her forehead against the bars, and after a short silence, went on in a thoughtful tone. "I'm not exactly sure what I'd do, you know, but something interesting, something that's all mine, something that would make some kind of difference in the world. It'd be nice to have a new name to start with, once that's not all worn out from being called so much. And I might even decide to have a pet, maybe a big old toad, like you, that I could keep in a nice cage with a lot of grass, and At this, the toad stared and blinked. He gave a heave of muscles and plopped in the heavy mud ball of a body a few inches further away from her. "I suppose you're right," said Winnie. "Then you'd just be the way I am now. Why should you have to be cooped up in a cage, too? It'd be better if I could be like you, out in the open and making up my own mind. Do you know they've hardly ever let me out of the shore all by myself? I'll never be able to do anything important if I stay in here like this. I expect I'd better run away." She paused and peered anxiously at the toad to see how it would receive this staggering idea, but it showed no other signs of interest. You think I wouldn't dare, don't you?" she said accusingly. "I will, though. You'll see. Maybe first thing in the morning, while everyone's still asleep." "Winnie!" came the firm voice from the window. "All right, I'm coming," she cried, exasperated, and then added quickly, I'll be right there, Mama." She stood up, brushing at her legs, where bits of itchy grass clung to her stockings. The toad, as if it saw that their interview was over, stirred again, bunched up, and bounced itself clumsily off toward the wood. Winnie watched it go. "Hop away, Toad," she called after it. "You'll see. Just wait till the morning." So now we know that we have a little girl from this chapter named Winnie, who's quite frustrated, to say the real deal, with her current living situation, right? And is contemplating running away. Do you think she's going to do it? Do you think she's going to be happy when she does it? So, when I was a little girl, I'm going to share a little story with you real quick, because this will be part of your journal today. When I was a little girl, my parents divorced when I was 10. And, of course, it was hard on me. And there were so many times during those next couple of years that I missed my dad. I lived with my mom at the time. I missed my dad, and I always thought, maybe I should just go live with him. Like, every time my mom would fuss at me for something I didn't think she needed to fuss about, like every kid thinks at some point in their life they're being fussed at for, no reason. We all know that our kids are innocent, right? And I would always say to myself, I wonder what life would be like with my dad. And when I got a little older, not the right thing to do, but I did. I would tell my mom that often, I just want to go live with my dad. Things will be so much better living with my dad. I didn't really believe that, but it was a way that I could basically get my mom's attention. So when I went off to college, I stayed with my dad and my stepmom for what I thought was going to be a whole semester of college. I love my dad. I got along well with my stepmom. But I went away to live around Baton Rouge, which is pretty far from here. My mom and stepdad were living here. And I realized quickly how much I missed my mom. Life was different at my dad's. It was hard to get adjusted to. I loved the time I had with him. But at some point, I just wanted to go back to what I was used to. And it made me realize, maybe things weren't always as bad as I said they were. Maybe I shouldn't have fought my parents as much, my mom and stepdad as much. Maybe I should have just been happy with the way things were. My mom would always tell me when I would tell her that, well, go. You're going to see that the grass is not greener on the other side. And when we read about Winnie sitting on one side of the fence talking to the toad, wishing she was on the other side of the fence, that she's obviously never been outside the fence very much, if any. I guess we'll figure that out later in the book. But she's wondering what life would be like on the other side of the fence. We always think, what if something were different, things would be better when things don't go well in our life. And so I know you haven't lived very long, but I know that there's something about your life that at some point, maybe not now, maybe not today at this moment, maybe it has something to do with this last couple of months or few weeks that we've been here at home. At some point in your life, you have thought about something that you would want different in your life. Maybe that something different happened and you realized, uh-oh, I shouldn't have wished for that. Or maybe it happened and you were like, oh, so the grass is greener on the other side, and it worked out better for you. So today in your journal, I'm not even going to write this as an assignment. I'm just going to give it to you orally right now. Well, I guess you kind of have to have something to copy, so I probably will put it on the Google Classroom comment post part of the comments. But I want you to journal, to think about, before you write and answer this question though, was there ever a time in your life, for any reason, even if it's just a little thing, that you wished something about your life would be different? I know I could think of about 6 things without even really thinking, but I know I've lived a lot longer than you. So, think, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be something little. It doesn't have to be something you thought of many times. Don't make the assignment complicated. But write in your journal today, what's some part of your life that if you could have, or maybe you've wished it before, if you could have it be different, what would it be? Why would you choose that thing? And how do you think it would be different? Or you could write about a time when you wished that something would be different. It happened and it ended up turning out to be a good thing. Either one of those will work. But I want you to really think about, it helps you to evaluate your life and what kind of blessings you do have in your life, and the things that you should be thankful for, and maybe even things that you don't have the power to control, because a lot of times that's the hardest for us to accept, is the things that we wish were different but we can't control. So have fun with the assignment. Think about it. It's a reflective journal. Don't make it difficult. Start a new page every day. Put a date at the top. Dear journal. And just write. I'm not worried. Please try to use proper punctuation and capitalization, and because it's training you to be a good writer. But I'm not real crazy about the format, using personal pronouns, blah, 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 blah. Just want you to write and think and be reflective and write enough that it's something significant to you that you can look back on later. Okay? You guys have an excellent day. Go outside at some point. Get